Hello everyone, Matt from Model Minutes here and welcome back to the workbench for another unboxing. Today I'm taking a look at this, the Academy F4F-4 in 1/72 scale. So join me as I get stuck inside the box and see what this one is like. So on the outside of this box then we can see a Wildcat as it's coming into land. It tells us it's a US Navy fighter and it's actually caught the arrestor hook on the aircraft carrier as it's landing. We have some information about what this kit contains: fully engraved panel lines and rivet details, optional position of the landing gear and fuel tanks. There are 35 molded parts, and down here there's no glue or paint included, and you might have it slightly different to what is shown in the images, which I know this is something that Academy has done to me in the past. You look at it and go, oh, that looks really cool, and it turns out that it's completely different on the inside. On this thin edge, we have the same information, but we do have an assembled version of the kit. I do like this. It gives you something to aspire to, but as they say on the front, it's probably not going to be what you have inside the box. So this has a big yellow roundel around the outside. I don't think we're going to have this version. I think we're going to have this version here on the artwork. The other long edge here has a copyright date of 1987. Do take copyright dates with a pinch of salt because they don't always indicate a tooling date, but in this case it is. It is a 1987 tooling. I know this already, so I know kind of what to expect as I open the box. But, you know, you could be expecting something recent and a copyright date could be a bit misleading. We have a importer stamp here from Bachmann UK, and if I flip over to the what we're missing, this edge here, the thin edge, we can see we've got an item code of 12451. There is a price sticker on there. That is how much I paid for it, but I'll talk about the price a bit later on. The other side of the box has nothing on it, so we will open the box and see what we've got inside. We have 2 bags of plastic parts and some other bits of paperwork, which I've looked at before. They just give you hints and tips and things, which are helpful. It's not bad. They're not a bad addition to the box. But we will have a look at the instructions first. So the instructions then, on this page, we have a black and white image of the aircraft. It's the same one from on the front. And it says that you can download the latest version of the instruction manual by going to the website and downloading it. But I actually have done that before with other kits and it's not found anything. So I don't know if that's true. Then we have our painting instructions and they're in black and white. So that's not particularly helpful. I don't know what this is telling me to paint silver. I presume there's a pitot tube, but it tells me to paint something silver there. Something is blue-grey, which is the top surface, and then they've given us a half for the other side. So the lower side is white, and the upper half is in a sort of naval blue-grey. We do have some safety information down the bottom here. I'm not a fan of these painting instructions. They are not as clear as they possibly could be, and especially given that it's 2026 and not 1987, would it be possible for them to include colour ones these days? Also, by the looks of it, we only have the single paint scheme. Turning over to the other side, we have a symbol key at the top, and then we're into construction. So we have a pilot, by the looks of it, who can go into his seat with his control column. Very simple looking kit at the moment. Not a lot of cockpit detail. Engine components get glued together, but this is good because if you don't glue in this mounting point, you should have a freely rotating prop at the end. Landing gear gets built up as well, and it looks like we could technically have freely rotating wheels if you wanted that. Bit of play value for you. And then we come to our fuselage parts. Not much in the cockpit by the looks of it. We do have some windows on the lower side here, and the engine gets glued into place inside of the 2 fuselage halves, and there's a sandwich around it. Then we add our sort of front of our cowling, our propeller. I'll probably leave that off until after painting. And our wings come in 2 halves, get joined together, and the tail surfaces get glued on as well. There are drop tanks, which we can assemble at this point and add later on if we want to. There's also a display stand, which is always nice to see. So we've got a display stand and a pilot. So actually, I'm probably going to go for flying pose. So if you want to do a flying pose, I think it's at step 7 here. If you don't want to install your landing gear that you assembled at step 3, you can actually just glue the wheel in place and then this blanking part over the top. So that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it in a flying pose because I love to have it in a flying pose. That's what we're painting silver. That's the pitot tube on the lower wing surface. And then on this step here, we're adding our aerial mast, our canopy, and our display stand. So not an overly complicated looking kit, very simple, you know, quite an old looking model, really. Not quite up to today's standards. Decals then, we have a very small sheet of transfers, which literally consists of some stars and bars, and also the numbers for the aircraft, and that's it. Like, this is not going to be complicated for decaling. That's like a 10-minute job. Academy decals have been a bit hit and miss for me in the past. I hope these go on okay. I've had some Academy decals which have gone on really nicely. Maybe they're a little bit thin, but they've gone on so well and they've settled into the surface details, whereas I've had other ones that look a little bit more like this, which haven't settled into the surface quite as nicely. They've been a bit stubborn. I hope these are not particularly stubborn, but I worry that they probably might be. But, you know, there's not that many of them, so we'll see what happens when we get to that point. And then that brings us on to the bags of parts. So let's get them open. Whilst I'm doing this, it's actually a little bit of story time. An Academy Wildcat was actually the first kit I ever built from Academy. And this goes back to my youth. I've been playing, I think it was like Combat Flight Simulator 2, which was the Pacific sort of game where you fly around in the Pacific in various aircraft like P-38s, Wildcats, etc. And I was trying to build a kit from of each version or something that I played in the game. And Airfix at the time, I was kind of really into Airfix. Airfix didn't have any Wildcats, so when I saw the Wildcat from Academy in the shop, I was like, oh, I best pick that up and have a go and see what it's like. And actually, I was quite impressed. I was very impressed with the Wildcat from Academy. I thought it was very detailed. It was pretty good from what I recall. I was like, wow, this is better than some of the Airfix kits I've built, but that was naturally before I know what I know now. So there are a few little things with this kit that we'll look at as we go through. So we have on the clear sprue the clear little windows which go on the bottom of the aircraft. I think that was to help the pilot when he was coming into land. And then we have our main canopy. The canopy is looking a little bit scuffed. It's not looking perhaps as neat as it once did, and the canopy framework is pretty chunky, but actually that's not necessarily a bad thing, because that means it'll be quite easy to mask myself with some masking tape and a sharp knife. So that's not too bad. Clear parts probably could be a little bit better, but I have seen considerably worse. They look okay. And then our four sort of medium grey plastic sprues. On this one, this is sprue B, you can see actually we have our fuselage half, and we have recessed details, and we do have rivets as well, which is pretty nice. However, we talk about some of those inaccuracies. It is my recollection that this is a pretty chunky kit. I know that the Wildcat was quite a chunky plane anyway, but this is like almost a cartoony kind of chunky. Once it's been built, it'll look quite noticeable that it's quite sort of rotund, and perhaps more than it should be. The pilot, of course, that's probably seen better days. I've seen better pilots. I am going to use him, but that's he looks like he once was a person that's sort of been inflated a little bit. So yeah, I've seen better, but I think I'll use him. That's our pilot's chair with the weird little hook for the control column. Our tail surfaces here, they look okay. And our drop tanks or underwing tanks. This side has our ejector pin marks. There is a little bit of cleanup that might be needed on a few of them just to get things to fit correctly. Internally, inside of the fuselage, there's nothing of detail. But yeah, so let's move on to the next one. Okay, you can see there's a bit of extra sprue here, extra bits of plastic. So there is a little bit of flash in a few places, which might need a little bit of cleaning up. The engine details, I mean, they're okay, but they are a little bit simple. The wheels are the same, very simple, come in two halves. And then our other sort of fuselage half, bit of flash, again, that's going to need a little bit of cleaning up just to make it look okay. But it's the same kind of level of detail, not bad. You know, I've seen less detail on more modern kits. This brings us onto the wings. They look okay. Pretty nicely detailed for the age. Of course, no folded wing option. If you wanted a folded wing option, I know that the Airfix kit does have one. Display stand, which is always great to see. And then smaller details up here are, you know, molded relatively nicely. And then we're on to our final sprue, which has our upper wing surfaces, which look okay. And then our prop, which again looks okay, but there's a little bit of flash in a few places which needs to be cleaned up. And our engine cowling here, again a little bit of flash on the inside. Landing gear legs look fairly robust, but I probably won't be using them. I will be going for flying pose, because why not? Because it's given us the ability to do that. It's given us a raised or a lowered landing gear option with a display stand and a pilot. So that's really good. I like that. That's nice. That harks back to, you know, when I was a kid and I wanted everything to be flying. So let's wrap this one up. We have we have 4 sort of grey plastic sprues. The plastic is relatively smooth, not greasy, but a little bit dense. Details on the aircraft parts are quite nice. However, some of the other details are potentially not as defined as they could be, the pilot being one of them. I've seen much better pilots. The clear parts are okay, perhaps a little bit simple, a little bit crude. The only thing I would say is that the kit does look overly chunky, and I think if we were to compare this to a more contemporary model kit, or, you know, a more modern one, perhaps it would be showing its age a little bit. Decals look okay. There aren't that many. I hope they apply to the kit with no problems, but I have had a few struggles with Academy transfers in the past. And then we have our instructions, and they are printed in black and white, which is a product of its time. Bit of a shame they haven't updated these to be in color. I think they're going to be relatively easy to follow. I probably will be using the box art as a guide, maybe doing a bit of Googling. But as we saw, we didn't actually get the example shown on the box in the box. Actually, if you look at the example on the box, it does look a little bit chunky, like all of it around here just looks a little bit more chunkier than it probably should be. But yeah, it comes in this box. It's quite nice. I have built one of these in my youth, obviously a much earlier boxing, but it's basically the same. And that brings us on to the age. 1987, this was when this came out, and as far as I know, this is pretty much all there's ever been. It's been reboxed a couple of times by other companies. It's been in other boxes from Academy, but it's always been effectively this. They've just sort of updated the artwork a little bit, but it's always been effectively just the same kit that you see here. Which brings us on to the price. So I paid £6.65, which makes it one of the cheaper kits from Academy. You're getting a reasonable amount of plastic, so I can't really complain there. I have actually seen this cheaper. I've seen this for like £4 in the past, which is an absolute bargain, you know, for something to build. It might not be the most accurate Wildcat out there in 1/72 scale, but, you know, for £6.65, I think you're getting reasonably good value for money, despite some of the problems we've seen here. I think that is about around what the RRP is. It's quite difficult sometimes to find the Academy RRP here in the UK. Most shops seem to have it for sale between £6 and £8, which would make this fairly in line with that. Obviously, I would be saying if anyone's charging you more than £8 for this, it's probably not worth it, given that you can get other versions from other companies around the same kind, or just slightly more than that, and you get a few more options, and it's a much more modern tooling. But that is pretty much that. What do you think of my assessment of this kit? And do let me know down in the comments if my review was fair. Don't forget that we do have a Model Minutes Model Club, and if you'd like to join the Model Club and get exclusive access to early videos and other perks, check out the links in the description. Massive thanks to these guys on screen for the extra support they give me, allowing me to create consistent content. There are other ways to help support the channel if you'd prefer, and full information is below the video. The best way to support the channel for free though is by subscribing with notifications turned on so you never miss a modelling upload. Finally though, last thing to say is a massive thank you to you for watching this one, and I'll see you on the workbench again next time.